Chapter 7 Hawaiian Eating Salt and the Old Heiau. Salt from the spray of the sea that filled the small crevices on the shoreline and on the cliffs was a must to every native. For all their food, this was the eating salt that balanced the taste to their liking and was a special treat, kept like keeping money in the trunk. They also used their eating salt in cooking. There was other salt that came from the ocean and dried on land that they used to salt meat or fish to be dried. To distinguish the eating salt from the ordinary salt, they used red or black clay that they called alai salt. The clay was found in different parts of the island. In Kalapana, the only place this clay was found was between Puhiokalekini and Hala'ani'ani. There was a small cove and a cave nearby. The clay was as hard as a rock. They had to break it with a sharp stone. One side was black and the other side red, and whatever color they liked, they chose. They broke off a piece and soaked it in a bowl overnight. It dissolved and then drained to take out the water and all the impurities. When it was dried, it turned to dust and was mixed with the white salt, so it was a different color than the ordinary salt. When the ocean was rough and high waves battered the high cliffs, the spray from the waves, with the help of the wind, would take it a great distance and then would disappear into the air. What fell at the edge and on the cliff near a crevice remained. Then the hot sun dried the water, leaving the salt white and clean. When this happened, I would wake up in the morning and hike up the cliff. The cliff was about 10 miles long. I took with me a plain white sack. The first crevice I came to, I used a small spoon and just scraped the surface. As if I went any deeper, I would pick up the dirt. In some crevices, the salt was still wet, so I just picked the top off. By noontime, I had filled only half of the flour sack, but it was as heavy as it was damp. I also looked for the white berries. They were white on the outside and pink inside and sweet to taste. The goats liked them, but since they didn't come that close to the beach, there were plenty to eat. I usually carried an extra bag and filled it about a quarter full of berries. I tied the salt bag at the end and divided the weight and threw it on my right shoulder, which made it easier to carry. The bag of berries I carried in my hand. As I walked down the cliff, I stopped at the Kaniu-moi coconut grove and picked 2 soft meat coconuts. I husked the fiber off both and put them in the bottom of the bag with the berries. Nearby was a small pond with a square wall of rock. When the tide was high, it filled to the top so one could take a bath standing up. Just above this was an old heiau in which stood a lonely coconut tree. The heiau was built high with rocks piled one upon the other. It was about the size of a room, 10 feet by 18 feet. There was a flat rock in this heiau used to sacrifice human beings, and it was also used to tattoo the Hawaiians for identification purposes. The heiau was falling apart, and from what I learned from my mother, its name was Heiau Kekoa, tattoo. The small pond was where the body was washed before the sacrifice. From what I learned from the children when they rested in the heiau after picking guavas and black figs, they heard old Hawaiian music, not at night, but during the day. It all depended on where the moon was at high noon. I always went through the heiau, rested, and took a swim, but I did not hear any old-time Hawaiian music. The reason I stopped there was that I just wanted to pick up some figs and guavas and also small red and green chili peppers that grew wild. My mother liked to eat them with raw fish after they were mashed, as it made a delicious dish. I always ate it with her. When I arrived home, I took the wet salt outside and found a square board big enough to hold it for drying, The rest of what I gathered I gave to my mother. I told her that I came by the way of the heiau Kekoa, and she asked me if I heard any music. I told her that one had to be Hawaiian to hear the music, and I was part Chinese, so they wouldn't sing it to me. This made her laugh.